Hey, what's up, YouTube? So, I'm 3 weeks in here with TransAm, and I want to talk about some of the things that I learned while here in the company. And all of this is still a work in progress, obviously. Um, so, first off, good morning. I'm here in Rochester, New York. It's about 9 in the morning. Um, I want to talk about the clock. Working your clock is, if you don't know how to do that, it's really going to kill you. I'm a lease guy, and I lost a lot of time my first couple weeks not really knowing how to work my clock. So with that said, I would say leave yourself about an hour to find parking. I noticed that my company was pushing me to get there with like 15 minutes left on my clock, and just backing in would have sucked up all that time and more. But when you arrive at the receiver, you're sitting there, you're doing your paperwork with them, they're telling you what dock number to go to, then you got to find the dock, then you're sitting there taking time to back in. And you still have to do your post trip, which is you have to log a mandatory of 15 minutes on that. So before you know it, your time's already up. So definitely allow yourself an hour. What I found, if you give yourself an hour, what that does is you can find a truck stop to find parking. You can back in, and it leaves you time to do your post trip. Also, when you're at shippers, don't put in yard move when you're doing your off duty or your sleeper berth to move around. Sometimes you'll have to move around. Don't put in yard move. Put in PC. Yard move resets your 10-hour reset, so it stops that clock, and you'd have to start all over again. I lost over an hour and a half doing a yard move. Because I thought that was still off duty, and it says that it is, but obviously it's not. I lost an hour and a half doing that. So don't do that. PC whenever you can. As far as the 7-3 split goes, my understanding of it is, say I'm at a receiver or a shipper, always go on sleeper berth. And if you go 3 hours or more, basically that stops. It's not going to stop your 14-hour clock right away, but as soon as you do your 7-hour sleeper berth later on in the day, which adds up to 10, it'll start your 14-hour clock from where it started at as soon as you started your sleeper berth at the shipper, if that makes sense. So if I got to the shipper and let's say it was noon, I went in a sleeper berth, they took 3 hours to load me, right? So I logged 3 hours of sleeper berth time there. Then I started driving. Well, when I went in, I went to the sleeper berth. My 14-hour clock, let's say it had an hour on it. So as soon as I go into sleeper berth for those 3 hours, and after that I start driving, I go back on duty. Well, once I use up my drive time, right, my 11-hour clock, and all I have to do is 7 hours. Now, once I log those 7 hours, that 1 hour that I was at for my 14 hours is what's going to be left. So I'll still have 13 hours plus whatever drive time I have after that 7 hours, if that makes any sense. It's really kind of hard to explain, but just go into sleeper berth whenever you're at shippers and receivers, because you'll find that sometimes it'll take more than 2 hours, more than 3 hours to do. And it'll definitely help your clock out better in the long run. Next, get bolt cutters and pliers. These shippers, they'll put on these metal seals, and they'll also put on bolts on your doors. If you don't have bolt cutters and pliers, you're not going to be able to get it off when you get to the receiver. You're going to have to, get a hold of somebody at the receiving end and see if one of their guys there will cut it off for you. So yeah, I learned that the hard way. Also, your lock freezes up if you're driving in the winter conditions, which seems like all I've been doing lately. So in order to get that unlocked, use hot water, or unlock it every once in a while when you stop to do your inspection after every 3 hours or 150 miles. No, I'm sure some of y'all don't do that every 150 miles. I usually just do it when I'm on my when I have to log my 30-minute mandatory break. Speaking of the breaks, your 30-minute mandatory, everything's like time management. So go ahead and use your time wisely. I like to take my 30-minute break well, I don't do it at the fuel island, but like if I know I have to fuel up, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll log 15 fueling, because you have to log your fuel in at least 15 minutes. So I'll put that in. That counts towards my 30-minute break. And then I won't find anywhere to park, but I'll either pull up, and if there's nobody behind me, I'll park in front of the fuel island and log the remaining 15 minutes. Or if there's somebody behind me, I'll just circle around the fuel island or find somewhere else to park. I'll get back in line at the fuel island or find somewhere else to park on the side or on the side of the road or somewhere, and finish out my 30 minutes there. But try not to go to a rest area if you don't have to. I mean, I'm trying to run. If you don't have to, just try to kill two birds with one stone, I guess you could say. Always call your shippers and your receivers prior to getting there. I learned that the hard way. I got scheduled. I'm supposed to be doing a drop today. I was scheduled to be here at 8 in the morning. Well, I got here yesterday early at 4 in the afternoon. On my way here, I called them Saturday. Today's Sunday. I called them Saturday morning to let them know I was coming early and see if they would accept me. And it said that they weren't open. It said they were closed on the weekend. So I thought that was odd, me being new. I should have probably done it before I accepted the load. Lesson learned there. So I get here last night. Place is closed. So I'm hoping that they're going to be open today. Well, I get here today and they're not open. So I got screwed. So it looks like I'm going to have to sit here for 24 hours and wait till they open. I'll be out $500-600 because of my mistake. It's not really my mistake, but it is my mistake. I feel like the planning should have been done better. I should have never been put on this load if they weren't going to be open on a Sunday. They should have never had me here to be here at 8 in the morning on a Sunday if they're not open. But at the end of the day, I guess it's my responsibility. I should have called to check before I made sure, before I committed to the load. So lesson learned the hard way there. Yeah, so you want to make sure they're open on the weekends. You also want to see if they got overnight parking. Sometimes it'll say on your load information that they got overnight parking, and they don't actually have overnight parking. So always call your shippers and receivers, verify that they have overnight parking, and always call them to make sure that you can go in early if they'll take you. Sometimes some of them will take you, some of them won't. Some of them will fine you. I know Walmart will fine you if you show up prior to an hour earlier than your original scheduled time to be there. So always make sure you call your shippers and receivers, guys. Next up is trip planning. Trip planning is, I'm still new at that, but what I'm finding out is I'm new with the trip planning and fuel planning. I'm getting better, but that's where your bread and butter's at. Especially on the fuel planning part. With the trip planning, I plan for 50 miles an hour. Even though TransAm's trucks, if you're leased, it's regulated at 64 miles an hour, and if you're a company, it's regulated at 62. So yes, you may be able to go 64 miles an hour a lot of the way, but you're going to find yourself doing 35, 40, 45, 50 to 55. It all depends on where you're at, what the road conditions are, what the weather's like. Are you going through a city? Is it stop and go traffic? So I plan for 50 miles an hour, and I plan on doing like 500 miles in a day on a 10-hour clock. I try to keep my clock at about 9 3/4 hours. That way I don't have to, I'm not forced to do a 34-hour reset. I can work off my recycles. So yeah, plan at 50 miles an hour for 500 miles. And if you can overshoot it, great. If not, you know, at least you know you got that 500 miles and you can have a better idea of where you're going to be at the end of your day. Also, what I found that works, and this is still trial here, is working backwards. So like if you know you have to, like for this load here, this trip here, I had to be here at 8 in the morning. So I worked backwards, and I planned it to where I said, okay, so if I have to be here at 8 in the morning, I want to be at least around the corner from here 2 hours early, and then show up at this shipper an hour early. Just give myself some room for error there. So I went 10 hours backwards, and I figured out that I need to be wherever I'm going to stop for the night. I need to be there. I need to leave wherever I stopped the night prior. I need to be there by 8 o'clock p.m., if that makes sense. So I can do my 10-hour reset, and that'll put me at, once I start rolling again, then I could be there by 6 o'clock in the area, show up an hour early. So work backwards if you can. That way you can figure out what time you need to be at your certain stops. Say you got a 3-day trip, you know, you know when you're going to be, what time you need to be stopped by on day 1, what time you need to be stopped by on day 2, and then you can be there at that certain time. So that way you can work your clock better. It just seemed to work out a little bit better for me. Also, allow at least 2 to 3 hours for delays on your trip, your overall trip. And that's obviously depending on how many cities you have to go through. I know I went through Atlanta. I tried to go through there a little bit later. Like, the first time I went through, it was rush hour traffic. It took me forever. I'm talking forever to get through there during rush hour traffic. And then the second time on my way back, I went through there again. I tried to go a little bit later, and I ended up going through there about 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock, and it was still bumper to bumper rush hour traffic. I don't know what's going on with Atlanta, but it's pretty messed up over there. Fuel planning. This really hurt me my first couple weeks. I spent an astronomical amount of money on fuel, and it ate into my take home. So what I'm learning is you don't want to focus on your gauge. Focus on the gallons that you put in, and figure out what the distance is that you traveled, how many gallons per mile you're getting, and then subtract that from the distance that you traveled. So always know how many gallons you're carrying and what your capabilities are, how far you can travel, when you need to stop, things of that nature. You also want to stop. You do want to, you know, it's a hassle, but you got to take time to figure out the fuel prices. Like right now where I'm at, the closest fuel station, they're charging $3.33 for fuel, you know. Obviously, I don't want to fill up my tank here, so I would put in just enough. I'd find out how much it is, how much fuel I need to get to a cheaper station towards the direction I'm heading for my trip, and then I would put in that amount, and then go to that next station. And if that's still high, I'd keep hopping until I get to a decent fuel rate. Right now, the average rate is around $2.86. So I'd want to be at least close to that before I fill up my tank. You know, and speaking of filling up your tanks, don't ever fill up your tank on a Thursday. That's when the pay period ends. You're going to pay for all that fuel. Fill up Friday if you have to run your trip. And then after that, fill up just what you need to get to the shippers and then receivers. So you're going to have to get good at figuring out how much fuel to put in your tank. Know what you are empty and loaded. I know my truck empty right now with the empty trailer. I run around 9.5 to 10 gallons per mile. When I'm bobtailing, I get 12 gallons per mile. And then when I'm loaded, I get anywhere from 7.5 to 8 gallons per mile. And in this, again, I've noticed that it also depends on your terrain. You know, obviously I'm not going to get the amount of gallons per mile I would get on flat terrain as if I was going uphill most of the way, you know. So you want to keep your terrain into, take that into your process in there as well. Also factor in your APU. I figure my APU with this truck takes about a half a gallon an hour. So on a 3-day trip, I'm sleeping for say 8 hours. I'm going to need 24 gallons, or 24, that'll be 24 hours of using my APU if I'm in the wintertime. 24 divided by 2 is 12, so it'll cost me 12 gallons of fuel to just run my APU to heat the truck up. So definitely keep that in mind. And then finally, I'm going to touch on parking. Parking has been a real bitch. You know, if you're trying to do this as like a 9 to 5, you know, you're going to have a real rough time finding parking at these truck stops. They're all full by 5 o'clock. So either run late or run early. You know, you want to be done. You want to be done at it pretty much when everybody else is running, or try to find like a mom and pop truck stop. I slept on the side of an oncoming ramp. I don't advise it. But yeah, you'll learn parking the hard way. All I can say is you definitely want to plan out where you're going to park for the night, and use Trucker Path to figure out. They tell you the trending history and the times that people are there and not there. So that's all I got, guys. I'll let you guys know how my 1 month is, and you guys have a great day.